What if the city with the most sophisticated food scene in China built its entire reputation on dishes it did not fully invent? What if the foods most associated with Shanghai were actually born in other towns, other dynasties, and other cultures that Shanghai absorbed and made its own? Today on Recipe Lab, we are breaking down 10 iconic dishes the world associates with Shanghai and revealing where they actually came from. From ancient soup dumplings with paper trails that trace them 20 kilometers outside the city, to beloved mooncakes wrapped in legends that historians have never been able to verify. This countdown moves through street stalls, banquet halls, and fraud scandals to uncover how Shanghai became the master of culinary reinvention. Starting at number 10, we begin with the dish the entire world already calls Shanghainese. In the 10th place, the world-famous xiaolongbao, Shanghai's so-called soup dumpling, reveals a history that begins not in the city's bustling markets, but in the riverside town of Nanxiang. Archival records from the 1870s, including a Shanghai gazetteer and a notice in Shenbao, name Huang Mingxian as the creator who first tucked gelatinized pork aspic into a thin wheat wrapper. An 1882 photograph of Huang's shop sign and a ledger from 1891 confirmed daily sales of up to 150 buns, each with skin barely 1 millimeter thick. The technical secret was chilled pork stock set into a firm jelly, sliced into cubes, and wrapped so precisely that steam transforms the aspic into hot broth only after cooking. Live demonstrations today still follow this method, showing how the aspic melting moment defines the dish. While Shanghai later refined the xiaolongbao with thinner skins and sweeter notes, the hard evidence roots its invention squarely in Nanxiang, and that positions Shanghai as a master of adaptation rather than origin. Number 9. Shengjianbao turns the myth of imperial invention on its head. In 1912, Shanghai's street food ledger logged a new snack sold near Yuyuan Bazaar, a pan-fried pork bun, crisp on the bottom, steamed soft on top, and filled with 5-spice pork and gelatin broth. The secret wasn't courtly technique, but a street vendor's trick. After a quick sear in a flat iron pan, a splash of water was thrown in, and the lid slammed down, unleashing a cloud of steam that cooked the top while the base stayed golden. Each batch, about 30 buns at a time, relied on a steady 180 degrees Celsius and a precise 6-minute steam, a method later adapted to electric griddles in the 1990s. Yet this working-class classic nearly vanished during the Cultural Revolution, when street stalls were dismantled and the water injection step faded from memory. Its return in the 1980s marked not just a revival of a snack, but a restoration of Shanghai's kinetic, improvisational food culture. 8th place, Hongxiao Ru, red braised pork belly, wears the badge of Su Dongpo's literary genius, but the real story lies in a much older ledger. The Ming and Qing Compendium of Jiangsu Cuisine, published in 1685, lists a recipe for pork belly simmered in soy sauce, Shaoxing wine, and exactly 1 part rock sugar, gently braised for 2 hours over low heat. This predates the Su Dongpo myth by more than 2 centuries. The poet's supposed connection first appears in a Shanghai newspaper essay from the 1920s, a clever marketing ploy that retroactively attached his name to elevate the dish's prestige. Archival menus from 1903 already show Hongxiao Ru as a banquet staple, its signature red hue achieved by caramelizing sugar before the braise. Shanghai's own twist, an extra dose of sweetness and a glossy finish, helped turn this centuries-old technique into a symbol of modern urban luxury. The story is less about invention and more about how myth and menu merged in the city's pursuit of culinary status. Number 7. The story of Harry Crab is a masterclass in culinary misdirection. Official records from the Jiangsu Gazetteer in 1766 already celebrated Yangcheng Lake's autumn harvest, describing the crabs as prized for their roe and commanding high prices in silver taels. By 1885, Shanghai banquet advertisements flaunted hairy crab as the ultimate seasonal indulgence. But beneath the ritual, cracking shells with special scissors and savoring roe-laden claws lurks a staggering numbers game. Yangcheng Lake can support only 1,500 to 2,000 tons of true hairy crab each year. Yet every autumn, Chinese markets claim to sell over 100,000 tons under the Yangcheng name. The gap is not just myth, it is a business. Investigations in 2023 revealed brief transfer fraud, where crabs raised elsewhere are passed through the lake for a legal tag, then sold at a premium. Regulatory agencies reported 4.6 million yuan in fines for counterfeit crabs, but the scale of the trade far outpaces enforcement. In Shanghai, the performance of hairy crab, its tools, its timing, its luxury status, matters more than provenance. What diners celebrate as a symbol of local pride is in reality a seasonal spectacle built on a fragile promise of authenticity. Number 6. Scallion oil noodles defy the tidy origin stories so often attached to Shanghai's signature dishes. The first written recipe appears not in a city restaurant ledger, but in a 1762 Qing dynasty household manual, where boiled wheat noodles are tossed with scallion-infused oil and a dash of soy. By 1908, Shanghai factory worker ads in local papers promoted the dish as a quick, affordable lunch, yet no mythic inventor or storied tea house emerges from the record. Instead, the secret to its enduring appeal lies in a technical sequence, not a place. Oil heated to exactly 130 degrees Celsius. Scallions fried for just 15 seconds, then sesame oil added at 180 degrees Celsius. In 2023, a lab analysis confirmed what generations of cooks insisted. Adding sesame oil after the scallions boosts the key aroma compound 2-acetyl-1-pyrroline by 22%. The result is a bowl that smells sharper, tastes deeper, and comforts more precisely than any origin myth could promise. Here, Shanghai's genius is not invention, but the relentless refinement of flavor through timing, temperature, and the quiet discipline of repetition. Number 5. Sweet and sour spare ribs are often paraded as a Shanghai original, but their flavor blueprint goes back to the Song dynasty. A culinary anthology from around 1120 spells out a recipe pairing pork ribs with honey, vinegar, and ginger, a combination that set the standard for centuries. The real twist didn't come until Shanghai's sugar traders left their mark. By the 1950s, the city's chefs codified a new standard. For every part Zhenjiang vinegar, they added not just 1, but 1.2 parts sugar, nudging the glaze toward a richer caramel and a softer tang. Lab tests pegged the finished sauce at a pH of about 3.5, confirming the sweet-acid balance that defines the dish. This isn't just a matter of taste, it's class politics in a bowl. A dish once fit for Song-era banquets, now reworked for a city obsessed with refinement and imported luxury. If you're enjoying these culinary revelations, now's the perfect time to subscribe for more myth-busting food history. Number 4. Drunken chicken begins not as a banquet trophy, but as a preservation hack from the Ming Dynasty. The 1578 manual Shui Jing Ji lays out the formula. Fresh chicken marinated for up to 3 days in Shaoxing wine, then served cold, a method designed to keep meat edible through the humid Yangtze summers. But the real leap came centuries later, when chefs in Shaoxing started aging their wine in clay jars for 12 months, a process that boosts fruity esters by 15% and cuts marination time by nearly a tenth. Recent lab studies confirm this. Ceramic-aged wine penetrates the chicken more quickly, saturating the flesh with a floral aroma and a faint, almost sherry-like sweetness. At Shanghai banquets, drunken chicken is now an emblem of refinement, its roots in necessity all but forgotten. Here, the science of fermentation and the art of preservation merge, turning a survival strategy into a dish of quiet sophistication. Number 3. Smoked fish exposes one of the sharpest divides between culinary legend and technical reality. Qing dynasty fishing regulations from 1732 spell out the original protocol: whole carp, dry salted, then smoked over pine wood for 2 hours at a steady 70 to 80 degrees Celsius. This slow method produced a deep, phenolic crust and a supple, fragrant flesh, qualities that defined the dish for generations along the Yangtze. But in modern Shanghai, the ritual of pine smoke has almost vanished. Instead, most kitchens rely on a 30-second flash fry at 190 degrees, followed by a quick 5-minute soak in cold smoked broth. The shortcut saves nearly 2 hours, but a 2021 study measured a 20% increase in chewiness and a marked drop in complexity. Yet when heritage restaurants revived the smoke chamber, diners paid a 30% premium for the authentic version. The story of smoked fish is not just about lost time, but about the city's uneasy trade-off between efficiency and tradition, a theme that sets the stage for the even broader diffusion of dumpling techniques that followed. Number 2. Wontons drift through Chinese history like edible clouds, yet their story begins centuries before Shanghai's breakfast stalls. The Qimen Yaoshu, compiled around 544, describes thin-skinned meat dumplings boiled in broth, a dish already familiar to northern kitchens long before the city's rise. By the Ming Dynasty, the compendium Shi Li from 1587 lists pork and shrimp wontons wrapped in square wheat skins, echoing forms still found across the Yangtze River basin. But Shanghai's claim to fame lies not in invention, but in a distinct local twist, the pork only filling favored for its purity and texture, and a broth as clear as morning mist. In 1910, the Shanghai Daily trumpeted a citywide wonton festival, with vendors selling hundreds of bowls before dawn and advertisements promising a swallowing clouds experience to the factory crowds. This branding effort cemented the image of Shanghai-style wontons as a local icon, even as the dish's DNA remained pan-Chinese. While Cantonese wontons boast shrimp and richer broths, Shanghai's version stands out for its minimalist elegance, a culinary sleight of hand that turns a borrowed form into a badge of urban identity. Mooncakes owe their fame to myth and marketing, not rebellion. The story of secret messages hidden in pastries during the Yuan dynasty is legendary, but a 1369 military chronicle only records round cakes at mid-autumn. No mention of coded notes. By 1421, the Yongle Yao describes filled pastries with lotus seed paste and salted egg yolk at imperial banquets, still without any trace of subversive intent. Fast forward to the 20th century. Mooncakes become luxury gifts, with Hong Kong bakeries defining the lotus yolk standard and elaborate packaging. The mooncake gifting industry now moves billions of yuan each season. A full search of Shanghai newspapers from 2018 to 2024 finds zero references to any mooncake revolution. Dr. Yuan Wei's 2023 study is blunt. No documentary evidence supports the uprising tale. What persists is a myth, amplified by commerce and city pride. Across all 10 dishes, one pattern stands out. Shanghai's signature flavors are born not from invention, but from relentless adaptation and reinvention. Prestige here is built on transformation, not origin. That's the paradox. Shanghai's culinary genius is less about where dishes begin and everything about where they arrive. Which dish surprised you most?